This meeting is being recorded.
Starting by the announcement, as we said, as you know, all know that it's all about the community. And this is a chance for everyone to share knowledge and experience with the other members of the community. Please don't feel shy, just scan the QR code, fill the form, tell us what topic you would like to share a session or have a panel discussion about any topic you would like, or even mention any topic from out of the list that you will find in the form that you're going to fill. This would be great to get more speakers, more people to share their knowledge with the community and definitely with us. I'll keep the screen for like 1 or 2 minutes till everyone think about the topic he's interested to share his knowledge with us. Okay. Don't worry, this screen will get again at the end of the session. If you still don't have in your mind now that you can share with us, definitely we'll get back to the same screen. Our second announcement is our team needs to grow, and definitely it's all about the team to get more people collaborating with us and helping us to get this community more growing and more stable and more increasing the value that we provide to each other. We are looking for more volunteers to join our team in the specific areas you will find in the form as well. Mainly it's in marketing part, in event management and organization, and in the technology part. Feel free to scan the QR code as well to find whatever area you would like to participate with or volunteer with us. And don't worry, this screen as well, we get again at the end of the event today. Okay, starting our conversation. Today we don't have presentation slides. This slide just to help us to communicate with you. We don't have any kind of material to share. The material will be created by the discussion. I will open the discussion for the different stages of developing a product, and will anyone would like to participate and share his experience and knowledge for each stage of the product development, just raise your hand. You will get on stage for like 1 minute to share with others your experience related to this stage.
And can everybody hear? Because somebody just said, is somebody talking? But I can hear you, so. Okay, never mind.
I would ask if anyone do not talk, just mute yourself unless you raise your hand and you are on the stage to talk. Okay, so let's start. The product development lifecycle always starts by idea creation or discovery. Defining a problem, defining a solution need to introduce to the world without any kind of details, just a very vague idea without any details. Starting the conversation now, let's get your inputs about the product manager point of view for the first stage of building a product. Who would like to participate? You can use the raising hand option. Please go ahead just to organize the conversation.
I can start?
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, so I mean, from my experience, like, oh, I was faster than Sanjeev.
Go ahead, no worries. No worries.
Yeah, so from my perspective, so I've worked in B2C and B2B businesses. And so for me, I've always found that it's been kind of the trickiest part of the entire journey, because how do you pick the right idea? And I've actually seen differences in B2C and B2B companies. In B2C, you can much more rely on data. So, for example, you can see that, yeah, like people drop off on the website. So maybe you have to introduce something else, like another feature, or you can kind of look at the rest of the B2C market and kind of ideate from there. In B2B, it's much more customer oriented. You don't really have much data to rely on. It's more like what is the industry standard and what does the customer want? And so the biggest challenge right now, I work in B2B2C. So the biggest challenge is that everybody has an opinion. Every customer thinks they know exactly the solution to their problem. Usually the boss, the stakeholders internally, they also know what the best solution to the problem is. And so the biggest challenge is kind of to cut through the noise and kind of get to the problem instead of the solution. And it's usually quite hard to get to the problem because people already have a solution in mind. So they're not very good at articulating the problem. And something, yeah, like I've had and then I made a note of the hippo effect, where, yeah, kind of the highest paid person always sometimes wins out because the boss decides. Something that I found, like in a previous job, that quite helps is impact mapping, because there you're actually forced to start with the problem. And you get towards a solution. Of course, like I've also sat in meetings there where it's just been arguments because there's always one person who's louder than everybody else, but it's kind of, it forces a process onto you. Yeah, I was trying to think of an example of where it's gone really bad.
So let's, Marianne, move to Sanjeev, just for the sake of time. Sanjeev, you're raising your hand. Please feel free to share your knowledge on that stage.
Sure, Hamito, and thank you, Marianne. I truly agree with what you said. I believe the idea creation, you really need to look into the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So again, you may be established B2B, B2C, truly as Marianne said, but when you have something new to develop or a new feature, new enhancement, you really need to put yourself into the customer's shoes. You need to see, is this the real problem that you're trying to solve? Now, again, at the ideation stage, nothing is bad. You can have all these ideas. You can list all these ideas. You can have your team brainstorm on all these ideas. And you can do so many tools and techniques are there. You can use Miro or whiteboarding, for example. You can use many other things. And when it comes to the point where you need to pick one idea from the rest of it, you can look into, there are many frameworks, like for the conflict resolution, you have many ideas. Everybody wants their idea to be there, right? And there are frameworks where you can have clearly put all these ideas and have choose one person who will be the deciding person, but then everybody puts in their votes, so then you can make sure that the right idea gets picked it up. That's what I would like to share. That's what I have seen and observed and practiced, Hamito, and the rest of the team.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjeev. I'm taking the raise hand based on the sequence I see on my screen. The second speaker is Adil Zalu.
I think Varun was before me, but I can go ahead if he gives me the.
Yeah, I have the sequence on my screen is you.
Okay, let's follow the sequence on your screen. Yeah, I mean, product discovery is quite tricky, right? The way I've seen it work is usually starting by the company strategy. So this is basically the company product fit. So you need to know the product you're delivering or discovering, how does it help the company move forward along with its strategy? How does it impact the business overall? And that basically is your first filtering stage. Like, okay, the company wants to do that. It's that direction, and it's not going to conflict with anything else. People are going to see that clearly. And then you're going to move on, like after that first filtering stage, you're going to move on to the product market fit. This is where you want to look at, especially for B2B, you need to understand what your competitors are doing, how you differentiate, what value are you really providing with your product. This is assuming that you're starting from scratch. Of course, if you have an existing product, you need to do this, continuously, and refactor if needed. But this is like the second part of like product market fit, identifying also how people are going to love your products, and moving first by getting the critical pieces that form your product, and then how you differentiate through a minimum lovable thingy that you could expose, and then get this documented, get this, as early as possible, have many stakeholders look at that, and they will prove you wrong in many situations, which is good, because then you're narrowing down the problem space. Then you move on to the solution space, and then that's solution discovery. But I guess I can stop here, but this is really just a sum up of how you would, yeah.
Awesome. I think building on what you shared, and Mariana and Sanjeev, a very common problem for some companies that they have a solution that does not still solve the problem, and still struggle to find the problem to solve. This is a very common way for many companies around the world, but definitely it leads to a failure, a big failure for this kind of strategy. So
100%, yeah.
let's move for Varun. You have the mic.
Yeah, are you able to hear me? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Thanks, Amido. Thanks, Adel. Actually, that was a really nice insight. I completely agree with that. Trying to identify the product market fit. So to me, based on my experience, the initial phases are the most difficult phases. The reason is there is a lot of ambiguity involved at that point in time. First of all, you don't know who your stakeholders are. You don't know what is the problem statement. You don't even know, like, say, what are the questions that you need to ask as part of your discovery sessions. And depending upon the size of the organization, you might have the appetite to, like, say, go for an exhaustive discovery session, or you might not. So I think trying to understand all these kind of things upfront is going to be very critical. That is number one. And the second thing is, I wouldn't actually focus on, like, say, the product or the solution as part of this particular phase. One of the biggest mistake that I have done in my early careers is, like, say, having the solution or the product mindset during this discovery phase, rather than thinking about the problem or the solution. I think putting your ears onto the ground and trying to listen to the true customer problem will actually go a long way. Because a lot of times people feel that they know what their customer problem is, but then when they try to validate their idea, or when they try to validate what the problem is in the first place, they quickly come to realization that that is really not the case. So making sure that trying to understand the true customer problem, I think this is the right phase to do that. And to build on to what Adel was saying, like, so once you have the problem statement defined, then you can actually think about the minimum lovable solution that you need to build, like design and kind of whatnot. So the TLDR, the version is, I encourage that as product managers, we spend enough time during this idea creation or during this discovery phase. Don't fall in love with your idea. Like, say, try to understand the true customer problem. And then, like, so once you're past that phase, then you will have the time to think through and, like, say, start thinking the solution that you need to build together. So, yep.
Interesting. Thank you, Varun. Dheeraj, how are you?
Hey
Hello.
guys.
Yeah.
Nice to chat with all of you. Just very valuable insights. I work as a head of product for a crypto derivatives startup, and so I just wanted to add that, in our space, and we're a small startup, and the space crypto and DeFi, decentralized finance, is in its infancy. But it is kind of like the .com bubble almost. There's just so many companies already. And so something that I really like to do, and so this was when we were trying to originally come up with the problem, come up with what our product is going to be, understand users' needs for derivatives options trading in the market. And what I like to do is a lot, and this is, I guess, a B2C perspective from a startup that just raised funds, and you have some idea in mind, but we didn't exactly have the product. Market research. So I would go and look at 20 other options trading platforms, and I would try to understand the user journeys. I would try to understand the pain points, and I would try to understand the reception from like the users to understand how well each product has solved product market fit. And so market research can definitely help from like a consumer facing perspective. And I've gotten a lot of insights from looking at various product like concepts, like user experiences, and just diving into a thriving space is also a and then looking at which one took off. And in crypto, it's very easy. You can see total value locked for each product, and you can see their token price. So there's like a very direct connection between like product market fit and like, let's say, the token price or the total value locked on the platform. So I just wanted to throw in market research as a tool for idea creation here.
That's great. Thank you. Hello, Donald.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you know, a lot of good feedback, especially around, you know, focusing on the pain points of customers. So just a little bit about background. I've worked at you know, a sensing company, you know, doing B2B and B2C sales. I'm also at a chemical instrumentation company right now, so larger CapEx equipment. And, you know, being in both of those different environments, one critical piece that I've experienced is, you know, during the ideation phase, it's really critical to have the correct stakeholders, but a nice diverse background of stakeholders, you know, in those discussions. And it, you know, when I say that, I'm, you know, vertically at every level, you know, from production, you know, all the way up to your director and MVP levels. Just because there's going to be a lot of different experience, you know, you really playing on everybody's experience in those spaces. And there's going to be a lot of things that come up in discussion that a lot of higher ups just would never even think about because they're not doing the day-to-day activities. And, you know, having that feedback, especially from the floor, and then also, you know, mapping that with sales experience of, you know, out-facing customers, as well as feedback that you're getting, you know, even from like service and things of that nature. It's just really detrimental to, you know, making a really big impact and choosing which activities are going to be extremely impactful, you know, for the company to move forward with. So one of the activities that I've done previously is doing an impact versus resource analysis. So, you know, you create all these ideas, and then everybody together maps out, you know, which group it falls into, versus, you know, impact versus how much it actually costs the company, or, you know, how many resources it would take the company to actually implement those features or tackle those problems. And, you know, doing it that way, you actually find out that there's a lot of easy things that you can fix and to make a big impact, and, you know, allow for rapid response to the market with regard to your product, as opposed to kind of going down a rabbit hole and having tunnel vision on something that you perceive needs to be fixed or handled or create a big benefit, but might not be, you know, as beneficial as initially thought, just due to the amount of resources involved in getting that done.
That's great. That's awesome. After the idea creation, we got the inputs from the market, the competition, what the user would like to get. Now we can move to the next step, which is screening, or in some cases, some product development lifecycle frameworks call it define. Starting at that stage, what do you think? Who would like to jump in just to share his experience and knowledge, moving to the second step or the next step of the product development? raising hands. You can jump in. Sanjeev.
Yeah, so Hamito and everybody else who joined. So screening, I know, is something where I would say that, okay, label this as a fail fast. In screening, you are testing all the ideas that you produce in the idea creation, right? No idea is bad, okay? Let it be. But screening is your process, is where you're failing fast. You're doing all the hypotheses and then proving yourself wrong. That should be your intent, actually. In screening, you're not trying to succeed with the idea, you're trying to fail with the idea, and fail fast. Be agile, be nimble, right? And again, same thing applies, that you really have to think that you're solving a problem. It is not a solution searching for a problem, it is a real problem, right? So that is, again, you put in the idea creation, maybe you did not put that much weight to that. Now it is the time in the screening that you start to think that, is it the problem that the users are having? Again, in idea creation, likely you have identified some user personas, right? In screening, you would go more upfront in the market, in front of the users, to validate, to screen some of these your ideas. So I would say that while idea creation, you brought up 10, 20, 30, 50 ideas, or maybe one idea, but screening is where you actually put more emphasis to see that whether this is a real problem that you're solving. Otherwise, go back, iterate again, go back to your ideation stage and come back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Dheeraj, you are still raising your hand, or this is a new raising hand? Okay. Thank you. Varun.
Yeah, listen to what Sanjeev told. I want to touch on three things as part of this. So one is prioritization, like what we need to define. The second thing is the availability of resources. Like, say, what is the difference between an define or design, or like say an MLP that you're going to design versus like say a true solution that you're actually going to build. Third most important thing is the availability of resources. So on the first part, from a prioritization perspective, we would have actually conducted thousands of interviews, surveys, and whatnot. So the key question is, what are we actually going to design, right? And I think this is where trying to understand what your organization is and what do you want to do, right? What is your vision for a product, right? All those kind of things comes into picture. The funneling effect kicks in, right? Like say where you try to take all of those 1,000 or 2,000 things, and then you're probably going to start doing the design for a subset of those items. So being very mindful of the fact that this is not the time to build a true solution, but this is the stage to validate your idea. Trying to be very cognizant of it and taking steps or efforts towards that is going to be very important. And at the end of the day, like say, try to make sure that you don't spend too much of your engineering resources or your design resources, whoever it is, to build an minimum lovable product, right? Again, I'm trying to use the word minimum lovable product and not minimum viable product, because to me, minimum viable product is what you can do, but a minimum lovable product is like, so what your customer would ideally want, right? So I always prefer using the term minimum lovable product, trying to define what your customers would want and kind of go from there. Again, also don't expect all the bells and whistles to be in place as part of this initial design, right? They are actually marks. Put it that way, we are trying to give a look and feel for your product and trying to validate your idea. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Thank you, Varun. Rasi.
Yeah, hi everyone. Just
Hello.
wanted to quickly jump in on that whole concept of the separation between the idea creation and the screening. It may be very dependent on the industry or the scale at which you work, but I genuinely believe, and what I've seen in my practice, working in some the IT solutions for the financial industry, that these two are really a never-ending cycle, and you should keep refining your idea as you go through the screening, and then you should keep defining the idea and doing that continuous screening even when you move into a subsequent step, be that build or whatever the framework you use labels it. I think it's it's just as important to get with an open mind of what the problem is into the idea creation cycle. It's just as important to keep that open mind throughout all the stages, because quite often the idea that you have to solve a particular problem that you have identified at early days will have impact, be that a positive or a negative, on the other parts of the ecosystem where you're working, and you may need to refine that idea, or you may even pivot to provide a solution for a different problem, or identify a different problem to find out. I've seen many different PowerPoints or many different presentations of that, and it always looks as a value chain diagram. It seems a very clear cut. You do this, and once you're done with this step, you move to the next step. In reality, at least from my perspective, that's never the case. It's a constant loop, and you keep validating the ideas that you've screened as you develop them, as you build them, and as you put them to the real test with your clients. So that's my input on the diagram and this segregation. I don't know if anyone else shares similar understanding, but that's what I wanted to bring to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Krasi. Adel, again.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I'm gonna highlight what Krasi said. I think it's, some people even call it continuous discovery. It never stops. You're never moving in a linear line. Ideally, you're always iterating, and you're re-improving your product. And also I think maybe like you had distinguished it here, but in my mind, part of defining what problems to be solving, like, product strategy, what problems. So there are two parts, like there's problem discovery and there's solution discovery, and you keep iterating and have a loop for each. And part of the problem discovery is figuring out what problems really have impact on your business, what problems are important for your customers, and what problems you need to be solving. So this is your problems. The problems form your strategy, and this is basically, you go from there. And these problems, you have to stack rank them based on need, based on customer demand, based on many factors. In real life, it's in real life it's different. In theory, it's easy. There's a lot of framework that tell you, hey, prioritize, use this RICE mechanism, or use whatever. But then you're going to have a lot of input in the company that tell you, hey, we have this feature request coming from where, and you have to really filter out all this and focus on what problems you're trying to solve, and then drill down from there on your strategy. Because then once you get this right, you're going to move on to the guiding approach. How are we going to make these or solve these problems? And then you get into solution discovery. What are the best means to solve this? And this is mostly not something for the product managers to discuss, but more like for the product team overall, like your engineering, your design, all this. Like if you're doing B2C, how are we going to focus on the strategy, the problems that we've identified that need solving based on our discovery? And discovery here is iterative, you do user research and so on. So it's kind of like coupled together. I don't see them as separate steps. I don't see them as linear steps. It's always like you're iterating, figuring out what main problems you're trying to solve. Have you made the right hypotheses about these problems? If not, then go back and redefine these problems, basically.
Interesting. Thank you, Adel. Thomas, raise your hand. What do you think?
Hi there, everybody. Yeah, some great ideas being shared. I just want to share mine. I work in organization. We work in data science and software, and I just want to talk about the software development cycle. It's an ongoing thing, as being stated, and we sort of look all the time at the balance of, like, for example, you want to bring into your software business features, you want to bring in security features, you want to bring in infrastructure improvements and all this sort of thing. So there's ongoing work that you do to improve this, and we always at a balance of trying to screen every item that we've put forward to determine which are the best items and which aren't. The other thing that we often do in software is we do what I call the triple D, which is deployment-driven development. So when we have clients who are quite demanding, we end up putting new features in for them, and that becomes a new release. So this whole process is ongoing. It's not all about the start. It's just the start of a long journey of continually idea creation, screening, creation, screening. Yeah,
that's correct. Thank you, Thomas. So let's move to the third step or stage for product development life cycle, which is the concept development or the design itself. In terms of, we got the screening, we got more confident about what we're going to build, what the customers are looking for. So now we need to start create or formulate all of these hypotheses and confirmations we got from the market to a specific product or specific features and modules. Who would like to jump in and start?
I can't raise my hand, by the way, so I just have to.
But you can talk definitely.
So in like on the design, of course, like you get the UX and the visual design team involved. And in my experience, I've always found like this kind of not a trade-off, but the kind of the fight between UX and making it pretty. I feel like a lot of the times, like it's quite easy for the team to get stuck into or to fall into the trap of it needs to be better looking than any other product. And yeah, and so UX is, even though it looks pretty, but UX is way more important. It's like if you look at, for example, Amazon or Google, like none of them have snazzy designs, but all of them are usable, and that's why everybody goes and uses them. And yeah, and so like usability tests, like always getting it in front of the customer, in front of the user, seeing where the issues could lie. And like I just wanted to give one anecdote where even UX tests, some usability tests can be misleading. There was one company where the design team, they were also very visual, and they really wanted to put a search, instead of a search bar on an e-commerce website, they want to put a search button. And everybody was against it. So they ran usability tests. Usability tests showed that everybody found the button. And so we really had nothing to go against. So we implemented it, but we followed up quite soon. And so after a couple of weeks after launch, I checked the comments that came in from the website, and people started commenting on, it would be really nice if you had a search function. And so that kind of course, we changed it really, really fast. But I think one of the learnings there was, so A, how important UX is, because we also lost a lot of transactions. And then B, also not to trust like one data point, just because a usability test and 5 users said it's all fine. There are other data points you need to gather, and you probably should go for more than just one usability case and then take that as a gospel. Yeah, that was.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. Maru?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the last intervenant for what she said, that she gave as an example, because that's also an example that I usually give, but the explanation I give for it is very different from what was given, very, very different. The real reason that I've seen, I do strategy work, by the way, the strategy and architecture work. Part of it is product strategy and part of it is organizational strategy. And the real reason I see for that, from my experience, is the lack of skills in designing in using the right thinking models to designing experimentations. Usually these are very biased and very ill-defined tests and nothing to do with an experiment. To show you just the very obvious difference, I can give you a very trivial example. When you go to the doctor and you do a dermatological allergy test, they will first use a control product on your skin. So they will test something that is not allergic, and they will see first if your body is not reacting to it, and then compare it to your reaction of your body to the real allergenophanes, so basically allergic particles. And when you do such an experiment like which was just described, there is no control group, there is no baseline, there is no validation. It's just it barely qualifies as a test because you have a hypothesis in mind and you define an ill-based, you set up an ill-defined experiment to either to either verify if that can hold sometimes for certain users or not, but you neither prove nor disprove this. To do that, you would have to randomly select users from, anyways, I don't want to go into details. The way to do that more properly is quite obvious. And I just didn't say many things earlier. I was listening very carefully. The other main shortcoming I see in skills of product teams in general, including CPOs, etc., is understanding and practice of strategy. And very, very often, including everything I've heard today in this call, all the examples that are given, all the concerns that I followed, all the thinking models that I use are purely tactical. There is not a single mention of the playing field, how to win, what resources and capabilities do I have to win, what is my competition doing. So usually this is going to be my last sentence. This stops at a very basic level of competitive analysis and due diligence. So basically comparison of features, market size, market share, etc., to other providers. But there is no definition or understanding of what playing field am I in, and what am I playing, and how am I playing to win. That's what strategy is. And if you talk to enough product managers across communities, from product tank to anything, anywhere, SVPG, that's a Silicon Valley product group. These are the guys who hate Scrum, etc. These are really, really smart guys. You will notice that this discrepancy, this shortcoming, this lack of understanding and practice of strategy is really a big, let's say, a big pain in product management. So these are my 2 points. Just designing proper experiments, understanding of data and data validation, and strategy. Thank you.
Thank you,
Really good
Maru.
feedback.
Thank you very much. I think as well, in adding to that, the research bias part is a very complicated task, especially at the beginning, because at the beginning, early stage idea building, you don't have any source to build on. You need to create your own data and have a proper sampling strategy, a proper and clean target segment that you can get the correct response related to your idea, and avoid biasing or avoid talking to family and friends, for instance. This is a very common mistake. I always give an advice for my clients or my network: avoid to ask your friends or family, because most of the time they will give you a positive feedback and they like you and they like whatever you are saying. Actual customer is the one that we need to talk with, and is the honest feedback we get to build a proper and successful product. So, Sanjeev, you're raising your hand. Please go on.
Just one quick thing that I wanted to mention, that if you're building a digital product, right, in the concept development, you really, again, this is a pre-MVP in any case, but there are so many tools available out there where you can use high fidelity wireframes, workflows, right, Adobe XD, so many tools available these days where you can actually make a product look like as a product, but it is not a product, right? And you can show it to the real users. Getting the feedback from your users. Now you are coming to from idea to screening to concept development. You are building your focus groups, your user personas, focus groups, where you're going to show them and then take the feedback, incorporate before you start building the MVP. So I would say that it is easy for a digital product that you can do so much without actually building, unlike physical products. That's what I wanted to add.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. So now we are moving to the next step, which is the development itself. After getting the concept ready and the design is ready, we need to start implement all of these kind of inputs, and we to have our first version of our product ready to go to the market. What do you think of this stage? How the product manager should act on the fourth stage of building the product life cycle from your point of view? Would like to participate? Sanjeev, you're still raising your hand. Would like to jump in?
No, I lowered my hand, but I can start surely.
Go ahead.
I can give a warm up to everybody. So in the product development, exactly, you start to build. Again, remember, you're not building a full product. You're still focusing on, as Varun said, minimum viable, or what was your term, Varun? So you're trying to focus on that only as of now. So you build that product MVP. Your goal here is to take something to the market first in a fast manner, because the competition is, as you started building, there are people who already got to know about your ideas. You already created your website, maybe you started to socialize your idea. The competition will catch up, so you have to pretty soon get something out in the market. And again, not only to rush yourself, but to validate your problem again. See, we started from the idea, screening, concept, product. We are still validating, so we still have to keep on validating that thing. So you bring the MVP, you start testing with the real users now with the MVP, and then you go back again if you need to iterate again. That loop will never gonna end. Build, measure, iterate. Right? You continuously keep on doing it. But this is your MVP. It doesn't need to be perfect. You go to the market. You're not going with a big bang. You're entering the market, and then you are refining your product. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Sanjeev. Who would like to participate and share his knowledge and experience in this stage of product development? Anyone?
I can't cut out since I can't raise my hand. So one note that I kind of made to myself is to get, I found it's always helped to get the developers or the engineers involved as early as possible. I've also learned that not every engineer likes that idea. A lot of them that just go, okay, well, just give me anything to work on and I'll do it. However, if they don't get involved early already, possibly somebody in kind of the idea creation, defining the problem, even in design, if you always have a dev resource available, even if it's an architect or somebody, then that understanding of what the product needs to be in the end just comes, like they have such a thorough knowledge of the business problem that they will also develop the right things and not misunderstand written down requirements in some user story. And kind of one of the challenges to find out who these people are who are best placed, because a lot of people, they don't want to, they'll just sit there and not say anything. So that's part of it. Yeah. I made so many notes. I'm trying to understand, but yeah, that's. I think that's the main
That's
part
great.
pointed out.
That's great to be well prepared.
I'm very prepared. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. I think as well, to building on what you shared, it's very important to invest the proper time in the first 3 stages. This will be very, very important for the 4th stage. Instead of building a product or something that does not want or does not solve an actual pain for the customer, this will be crucial failure you will achieve if you couldn't understand what exactly the market needs or the customer needs. Knowing your competition, knowing the current or existing solutions that your potential customers or users are using, even it's a manual way, and not necessarily to have a technical solution for the challenges or pains your customers are facing. Definitely, this should be considered whenever building a new product. So moving to Varun.
Yeah, thanks, Marian, for providing that segue. So in my experience, if you're especially with us who stepped into a product management role, from that of a software engineer, the one thing that I have to learn it in a hard way is remember that you're actually a product manager and you're not an engineer. So don't start coming up with the how part, right? Don't start coming up with the solution by yourself, right? Give the opportunity for your engineering team to wear their creative hat and come up with the solutions, which is what they would want at the end of the day, right? So that is number one that I had to learn. And the second thing is, Hamido and to Marian, what you both mentioned, I think rallying the team towards the shared vision is something that will take effect as part of this particular phase. Even though you will be starting the idea creation with your customers, you'll be undergoing the define and the design process. As Hamido mentioned and Marian mentioned, keep your engineers in loop. The reason is like, number one, you would want to make sure that, like, say, they understand what the product vision is and what is the big picture out there, so that they feel more inclusive in this process, right? And you don't need to feel like, say, it is just your product, baby say yours, right? They will also feel the same way, right? And trying to let them know what's in it for them by developing that product will also kind of go a long way. Yeah, these are at least some of the learnings that I had as part of my career with product management. So
Thank you, Arun. Maru?
Yeah, thanks, Hamidou. There's in general, there's many things I have an issue with. It's been 15 years, and even the visualizations we use to introduce these concepts and communicate them and share them are really outdated and really misleading. And I even really get really angry when I see any sequential diagram showing something like describing HCD concepts, human-centered design and stuff like that. It just drives me nuts because there is nothing, nothing serial or sequential about it. There is no. But in general, these are the two comments that I could share. It could be the start of a useful discussion, I hope. One is, two things are not shown here. One is that if you check, for example, let's take the oldest design thinking description documents. They will all show you that you could jump from one phase into the other the whole time. Then those models do not tell you have to, or you should treat each phase independently. So what was just said now is a description of the pain that product development teams are trying to deal with and fight against, because they think these phases will lead or flow into one another, kind of like an evolved waterfall. But it's not the case. The real product design, product management will force you to undergo these various, I call them activities, as opposed to any phases or whatever, just activities, and you will use them and access them and be in the space of these activities depending on what you need to do right now when you're working on the next value increment. We call these are sometimes called minimum business increment or minimum value increment that you're working on right now. This is when you treat your product development work as a flow type of work. This is something like Kanban, for example, or time-boxed units of work using something like Scrum, for example, etc. But that's a different discussion. The other thing that is not shown here is who are the people involved and how do they collaborate together. There are many principles for this, next to transparency and cross-functionality, self-organization, self-responsibility, etc. There is a lot of work that was done in UX and design and product management and even agile and flow of work that is relevant to understanding what these activities entail and what are the guiding principles to do them in a useful way, or to use as thinking guidelines to know what you should do in your particular context for your particular product, with your particular team, for your particular market, etc. There is no, it requires a lot of thinking. There is no way avoiding doing the thinking. So the thing that is missing here is who are these people? And my personal preference goes towards having a kind of facilitator, somebody who's really skilled in facilitation techniques, in innovation, game storming, liberating structures. There is a ton of very useful tools that would allow people who have that cross-functional mindset to work together. So for me, it's not just a preference to involve engineers as early as possible. If you have engineers who don't want to do that, then you got the wrong engineers. Everybody's involved from the beginning, including UX and design and market research, from beginning to end, because those activities do not stop once you start committing to something you will develop. You have to review your hypothesis even during development and after it's been deployed and monitored and observed. Anyways, these are my two comments.
That's 100% correct. Yani, this is a totally different, the two approaches of waterfall versus agile. This product development life cycle should be on a module level or feature level, not for the whole solution, definitely. But that's why it's an ongoing process. It does not stop at a specific stage, and it does not stop for the whole life of the product. Once you have a new concept or a new module or a new bin you need to tackle to add to your solution, you need to follow the same process. So let's move to the last and final stage, which is commercialization, rolling out, or in some cases, it's split in three different stages, which is marketing, training, and partying. Launching the solution for the mass or the whole market and universe who would like to use a solution. Who would like to jump in? What is the product management view for this stage? Just in the remaining time. Marianne, Sanjeev, Arun. New speakers would like to jump in. Some people raised their hands and disappeared. Would like to get back a chance now.
Okay, so so regarding rollout, I think a lot of the like one of the pitfalls of that phase is that you think fantastic, it's over now, and then you jump to the next one. And I think a lot of the times things like communication and documentation and kind of showing off to the customers and the marketing effort, it comes short. And that's pretty much been the case in every single company I've ever worked in. So it's something that as a product manager is easy to forget, but it also like it has repercussions because especially in the B2B space, if it's not completely understood what that new product or that new feature actually does, customer satisfaction, it suffers. And a lot of the times, like even if one feature or any change really that you make for maybe 50% of the customers, they're going to love it. The other 50% are going to hate it, and they think they're not being listened to. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I don't have a wonderful solution. It's just something like that. This is a kind of it's a lot of times been an issue in places I've worked at because everybody's stressed, everybody's just kind of moving on. And in my current place, we're still thinking about how to build that communication in an effective way, because you can't just like constantly email customers. I mean, like sometimes you have a customer success team who are happy to put that on, so you're basically training the trainer. Other times, you may want to like to have a bigger marketing campaign or like in a better email, but it's quite hard, I thought, as a product manager to have that entire weight on yourself because you're constantly in the next cycle to like continue and to measure and to get the next product out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Marianne. We have Nailina.
Yeah. Hi, this is Nalini.
Sorry.
I'd like to add here is, if it is a completely new product where you're targeting a new customer, agree to Marianne's point where you need proper documentation, rollout plan and whatnot. But if it is an existing product and you're adding completely new feature, A/B testing is important here to understand how your customers will react to it. So aligning, and even during the implementation phase, aligning with your back office, your experimentation, designing the test, how you want to carve out the traffic and test out your feature is important to understand how you want to iterate and make it better. Or even decision of whether this is going to work well or not, or should we proceed or not, will help validate that. But I think, let's say the A/B testing went well and we are deciding to roll out, having a ramp up strategy is important as part of the rollout as well. So how do we ramp traffic with less impact is important as part of the rollout.
Amazing. Thank you. I think as well, whenever we moved or reached this stage, all the game changing now. It's becoming more harder to change or make some radical updates on the solution, especially if it has proper user base, a good user base, or even paying customers, just to avoid any kind of business affection or cash flow affection. But the process after reaching the 5th stage should have more automation like the A/B testing, for instance. That's 100% correct. Adel?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think one thing that we skipped, or maybe not skipped, or maybe we didn't have a circle for it, is instrumenting whatever you're shipping, right? So you're able to identify if and how it was successful. Also, there's this notion of product-led versus sales-led in B2B, especially today. When you have a product, how much is your product self-selling to customers? Do you really need a marketing team over it, or can you just enable them and at the same time have your customers use the product because you've built in the experience and educated the customers in the product itself? And additionally, so for the go-to-market strategy, it starts very early. Like you start to involve your marketing team if you're in a mid-sized company. You got to have field enablement resources. You got to have, I've seen also a couple of patterns like FAQs for the field. People will start to ask questions as you preview your product. You got to get feedback. People will ask you a lot of questions, so you got to answer those and make the answers visible to everyone. So when you get asked, you got to enable all of the field, and then you have to enable also your marketing team. The marketing team need to understand the product really well. You need to have a strategy around, like if you're launching the product, you probably have a checklist before launch. You make sure that to pass this checklist. If you have events on the upcoming, let's say, you know, if you're a tech company, or if you're in your domain, you have certain conferences or certain things that you know will get a lot of feedback when you push along. You could align also along this time. So it's really about enabling the field, enabling the marketing team, so that they're also self-telling about your product, and you're not just the only advocate of your product. You need to have your product, you know, be easily accessible to all these parties, so they can act as no one. You don't need to have a marketing role to market for the product. The market, you know, the product could market for itself. Or if you have really done a great job in enabling the product, you're going to find a lot of people referencing your material and using that also during your launch dates. So you're going to get this.
Yeah, added to that, I would say, you know, involving the marketing team or the privacy or legal would happen in the design phase itself, because, you know, there's no point in implementing when you're not allowed to, you know, launch it in a certain way. It might impact privacy or policies. I would say that engagement would happen in the design phase itself before you even start implementing. But I agree with you that they get involved throughout the phases to make sure, you know, they are able to market, you know, the product, cross-sell or upsell the product to the customers.
100%. Like there's a checklist that usually do, like it involves legal, it involves quality experience, it involves support lifecycle. All these things need to be checked before you do. Marketing is, when you get to marketing, you're actually saying, hey, okay, I do have a product, right? And now the notion is like, okay, how can I involve the marketing? The marketing team usually like has divided this PMMs, like product marketing or the technical marketing, and you got to involve them as early as possible. But the legal and like there's a thing that needs to happen before you're actually calling yourself a product, and this is like legal and quality experience, and all these things are part of that. And they have different names in different companies. So I'm just saying, you know, trying to abstract the name of the things, export policies and whatnot. And that depends if you're B2C or B2B. So that's really how.
I think the great discussion always need more than 1 hour. That's why we'll try to increase our events and the discussion base for this great valuable insights shared across everyone. Just before we close, I know that we are behind schedule. The hour just flew. Just to re-announce again the couple of slides. Anyone would like to share knowledge to get in a discussion panel, or even to have like a 30-minute session or something about specific topic he's expert at, or would like to share his knowledge with the community, that would be great. That's why we have this community for every single product manager under Quantec. But please scan the QR code, fill the form, and let us know more about your knowledge and skills you would like to share. I'll keep the slide for just 1 minute or something, then move to the next slide. Okay.
Yeah, while you are doing that, Hamito, so the last part was the party. So every time you launch something, don't forget to party, don't forget to celebrate small wins. That means you get your motivation for your next round, right?
Yes, that's true. Okay. The second QR code is for the more volunteers who would like to get more team members joining us to build our community and to sustain and manage the product management organization under Quantec. Please scan the QR code. Let us know what the preferences, what the areas that you can volunteer with us to build a great community for product managers. And the session is recorded, as you know. We are going to share the recording for you if you'd like to get back to it. And definitely, we are always happy to get more feedback about the session. Just feel free to share your feedback on the Slack channel, just to make us more ready for more value and enhance our sessions or big topics that is related to your needs and your understanding. And that's why always we're pivoting and always we're getting feedback from our users, great users, or the community members. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us today. It was a pleasure meeting you all and getting all of these insights about the product development lifecycle. Definitely we'll get more sessions coming in our kitchen for you, and stay tuned, follow our channel and LinkedIn for getting more details. If anyone would like to just have like 5 minutes discussion about anything, I'm still available, but the rest you're free to go. Thank you.
Hamidou,
I see you, Maro, you're raising your hand. I'm here.
Yeah, I have a small request. If you could also save the chat, there were many links, and I was on the phone. If that's possible too, at least saving the links. Thank you very much.
Sure, we can share the links on the Slack channel for you, definitely, for the either for the speakers forum or the volunteering forum, definitely. We're gonna share it shortly.
And the recording will be posted where? Can I leave you my email address?
Yeah, it will be usually or publishing on YouTube channel of the club, and we'll share the link of the recorded session with you as on Slack and on LinkedIn group as well.
What's the name of the YouTube channel so I can look for it now? Or maybe you have the link.
It's Quantic Product Management Club. If you couldn't, just on if you scroll down on the LinkedIn group, you will find the previous session recorded on the channel. Just subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next recording.
Yeah, I couldn't get into the LinkedIn thing because I have already 100 groups and they couldn't let me in. I have to unsubscribe from other groups. So I'm going to look for it now.
On Slack, we can share it definitely on the general channel on Slack. No worries.
All right, I'm going to look on Slack. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.